second. All right. Well, welcome everybody to this month's edition, the Christmas edition of One Stop Shop for Real Estate. Our panelists are here right now, and so I'm going to go across the board and ask everybody to introduce themselves. Listen, if you have any questions about what we're doing here today, you can either type them in the comments box on Facebook Live, and we'll see if we can pick them up. You can join this if you feel like it. Feel free to do so. Or you can call in, or I should say text in, and the number is 571-242-3668. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and text those, and we'll get ready to get going. So I'm going to go to my screen left to right. I see Chucky there. Chucky, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Left to right, John Murray. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do, and who you are.
All right. My name's John Murray. I'm the owner-operator of House Inspections at Bull Run out of Bristow, Virginia. We do home inspections, radon testing, internal air quality testing, water testing, all things to do with home inspections.
Great. Thanks, John. And to my left, and I don't know where he is on your screen, but is Alan Hill. So, Alan?
Yes, I'm Alan Hill. I'm a local real estate agent in Hartford, Connecticut. I work with everybody all over the country. So if somebody has a question, we can get your answer answered for you in a heartbeat. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alan. And to Alan's right is Christina Smith. So.
Hi, everyone. Christina Smith here with Caliber Home Loans. I am a loan consultant located in the Northern Virginia area, so most locally in Loudoun County and Fairfax County, but as a Caliber loan consultant, I can also help you all over the U.S. through an in-branch referral process. So if you're looking to buy your first home or your next home, or you're looking to refinance, I'd be happy to help you.
Great. And then down to my bottom left is David Perez.
Hello, everyone. My name's Dave Perez. I'm a real estate broker from the Chicago area. I reside in Berwyn. I'm here for you. If you have any questions today, I'd be more than happy to answer.
All right. And we normally have with us Karen Daly, who's with Echo Title. Karen's got a family emergency that came up earlier this evening. She's not going to be here. And I'm told that Scott was going to try to join, but he's probably stuck in traffic or unable to make it. So, and Scott's our financial planner. So we'll go with what we've got going for right now. So thanks everybody for showing up. I see that we've got at least one person that's on the call with us, and that would be Chucky, and we're glad that you're here. I think we've got a couple of other people that are with us as well on Facebook, and that's a good thing. So I'm glad to see that. In the meantime, if anybody's got any questions, and I don't know why. There we go. I see my feed for Facebook now. Okay. So let's go ahead and open this up, and let's start talking out with what's going on in the market. We got people here from Northern Virginia. We got people here from Connecticut. We've got people here from Chicago. We got real estate agents, lenders, home inspectors, all that. So let's just kind of get an overview about what's going on in the market right now. Christina, let's start with you on the mortgage side as to what's going on, because one of these questions that I got, actually maybe two of them, has got something to do with you later on. So.
Okay. Well, the market right now is hot, and not like the weather, because it's pretty cold out right now. Finally, hopefully we'll get some snow this year, but who knows? But rates are super low right now. Inventory is still pretty low. I know that all of you guys can kind of touch on that as well. But there are still multiple offer situations. The holidays right now are definitely a great time to buy. And I'll touch a little bit later on some of the benefits to buying during the holidays, even with that lower inventory. It's a little bit less competitive, but we'll dive into that a little bit more later.
Awesome. Awesome. So, John, have you done any home inspections lately? Did you end up doing one for a mutual client, or you got that scheduled, or how's that working?
That's not scheduled yet, but it's coming on the schedule.
All right.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people are doing void only inspections, but then they turn around and they want to ask for stuff, right? I mean, hearing that when I'm going through the debrief at the end through the hot wash, and I'm telling them all the things, and they're like, well, we should ask for that one. And the realtor keeps telling them, well, we went void only.
So let me explain before you go on what void only means. What a void only is that at least in the state of Virginia, where you go through, you do an inspection, and you have the right to do an inspection, but you either accept it the way it is or you don't. You void it, okay? And that's what a void only is, okay? Now, there's different things you can do, but when John talks about void only, that's what he means by that. You either accept it the way it is or you void the contract. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So there's a whole conversation that's happening at the end of these inspections where the agents are explaining, well, we can go ask for it, but I don't expect that they're going to give it to you because we told them we didn't want anything.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting just to watch that interaction because I don't think people fully understand when they're accepting that deal or putting that deal in, what it really means to them. I'm seeing so much of that shifting around at the end. So if someone's buying a house, understand the terms that are being used, like Jim, went through to explain what void only is, because I think we use it in such a user term. It's almost like our next nature, right? That we use it, but our buyers may not have an understanding of what that really means.
Yeah, right. Good point. Good point. So now I've got a question that came in for you too, John. We'll be asking you later on as we go on. But let's skip over to David. Why don't you tell us a little bit what's going on in the market in Chicago? Now, I know that you were out showing houses this week because David's actually my brother's realtor in Chicago. So,
Yep.
but I know the market that you're doing things out there. What's happening in the market in Chicago?
Well, things have not changed too much, Jim. The market is the housing market is very low on inventory, as Christina said, and we still have buyers, plenty of buyers looking for houses. And as usual, we have to go through the routine, or I do, of having to educate them with everything that's going on right now with the competition. Sure. And we can't get away with what we normally can with wanting the seller to make improvements and fix a bunch of stuff before they go through with the deal. So it's pretty much the same. Not a lot of change, low inventory, lots of buyers.
Okay. And we'll talk about what that means for people, low inventory and lots of buyers as we go on. But Alan, let's talk about what's going on in the market in Connecticut right now.
Do you mind if I answer that question about low inventory?
No, go ahead. Help yourself.
Well, for the people who are out there that are interested, low inventory is basically exactly what it says. We do a very low inventory of homes on the market. So normally in a regular market, we may have 250 homes on the market. Now we have 50. So that shows you that's a very low supply of homes that are on the market to sell. So with that being said, with such a low inventory, the price of homes have really skyrocketed up to unbelievable in price. Let me give you an example. I put a house on the market this week, 3 days it was under contract, and it was $5,000 over asking. Okay, that is even a low over asking. This is a $400,000 house in Connecticut, a little different than Virginia, certain areas of Virginia. But the property is under contract and it's $5,000 over asking. We actually listed the property as high as we could. And they even put it on the market, or put it under contract, even with it being so high. So I'm a little concerned that it may not appraise. It might have a problem with the appraisal. Now, basically what an appraisal is an appraiser comes in and values the property. Once the property is valued, he comes up with a number, and he does it with comparisons of properties that have sold in the area. It has to hit the appraisal number. If it doesn't, then the buyer has an opportunity to back out, or the seller could possibly drop the price, or the buyer could add money. So that's pretty much. Connecticut is really strong right now. It's a hot market right now, and we should keep talking. What is a hot market? A hot market is where houses are selling so quickly you can't keep them on the market. They're on the market for a few days and boom, they're under contract. So that's pretty much what's going on in Connecticut. New York City, I think, is a different market for people out there in New York City because a lot of people are flooding out of New York City and going into the suburbs around Connecticut. So there's a lot more houses probably going up for sale in New York City. With that being said, New York City prices are probably dropping a little bit. I don't know that for fact, but I believe that could possibly be true.
Okay. So to pick up on a couple of things that you just said, I want to expand on the thing about low inventory, and that's a great explanation. Another way of looking at low inventory is, let's say you hear somebody talk about we've got 1 month's worth of inventory. What that really means is if no other houses went on the market within a 1 month time frame, everything that's on the market would be sold. That's what that really means, okay? And so, you know, what we look for, a balanced market is somewhere between a seller's market and a buyer's market, meaning they're both at about the same, neither one's really got a competitive edge. It's about an even market. It's typically when you get about 5 or 6, months of inventory. Then inventory is different for different places. It's different in Chicago than what it is in Connecticut than what it is here in Northern Virginia. Here in Northern Virginia, in particular where I live in Sterling, the average days on market that a house stays on the market is about 12 days. In other words, from the day the listing goes live on the multiple listing service, or the MLS, until the day it's under contract, the average is about 12. Now, frankly, I think that's way high because I've been seeing a lot of houses under contract over a weekend, but that's what the statistics tell us, okay?
Wow.
So, and to Alan's point, he's exactly right. The less houses there are, the more competitive it is for buyers, and sellers are, they're able to pick and choose a little bit better than what they would normally do. So, so that's an interesting thing to talk about when we talk about inventory. Now, I don't know about you guys, but here in Northern Virginia, as Christina pointed out, it's still a very hot market, okay? But it's not quite as hot as what it was, earlier in the summer. Christina and I had a client where, I don't know, we'll be putting like 7 offers in on different properties. I mean, and he was offering, $30,000 above list price, waiving all sorts of contingencies, and still not getting the property. It's not quite like that right now, and so I got a question here, and maybe I'll even let one of you guys answer this if you don't mind. Where was it? So Tina from Herndon asked, well, how fast are houses selling? And I think we kind of talked about that. I don't, here in Northern Virginia, it's about, like I said, days on the market on the average of 12 days. It's probably a little bit less than that, in the area itself. What's it like in David? How many days in the market are your houses selling for there?
In the Chicago area, I'd say 7 to 14 days.
7 to 14 days?
Yeah. I mean, they come up and they're gone. I mean, they last a week. They might have an open house, maybe, but then they ask for highest and best, and then that's it. It's done.
Okay. And Alan, what about you guys? Where you're at?
Well, I haven't checked it recently, but with all of the houses, there are houses out there that will never sell in a good market. Like now, there might be something wrong with them. So all of those houses are included in on the price. So for every house that you have that's selling in 3 days, there may be a house that's been on the market for 150 days and it hasn't sold because A, it's way overpriced, or B, it's in really bad condition and it needs a lot of work.
But on the average, is it, around, I mean, it's like that in every market. On the average, how much would you think they're going for?
Well, on the average, I would say probably 14 days.
Okay, that makes sense. So the reason why I'm asking this is because now this is out your way, David. Ironically, it's from David. I know exactly who this is from. He said, this is a question for John. Sharon from Sterling asked, is it true it's better to buy a house in winter? So she's obviously seen somebody's somebody's Facebook post or something like that, maybe even mine. But if you're a buyer, are there any advantages, guys and gals, and all of you guys in the real estate business, whether you're an inspector, a lender, an agent, is it better to buy in the winter or? I mean, just give me your feelings and your thoughts on that, and I'll kind of finish up with my thoughts on it. Go ahead, Christina. Let's Christina.
Well, I would say absolutely. December is one of the best times to buy. They've actually noted that there are 7 specific days within December that have the highest number of closings or purchase contracts. And so, it's during the holiday season. People are feeling a little bit more giving. People don't necessarily want to move during the holidays. You've got sellers that are eager to sell because they don't want to move during the holidays. You've got seasonal sales as well on furniture. Now, don't buy any of it until after you close, please. Just a little side note, but there are tons of benefits to buying during the winter. And I have a question for John. From a home inspection perspective, what would you say on buying in the wintertime?
Well, I mean, for a home inspection, it really doesn't matter. We're going to test the furnace in the summer anyway, right? The winter, you can't test the air conditioner. If the external temperature is below 60 degrees, you can't run the air conditioner for fear that you might freeze up the condenser. So half of your heating and air conditioning system can't be tested in the winter. That's one issue that's out there. There tends to be more rainy days in the winter, so you can find those hidden leaks that don't tend to show themselves all the time. But that's also can happen in a summer rainstorm. So,
so there's pros and cons, is what you're saying, then, right?
Yeah, and for a home inspector, we're out in the cold or we're not, and it's just the way it is. There may be less chances in the winter for us to get up on a roof if there's maybe some ice or some snow. Here in Virginia, that doesn't seem to hurt us too bad. There's only certain days. I think I've had 3 inspections in 4 years where I had to go back to look because the roof was covered.
So that brings up a good point, because David from Aurora wrote this note to me, and David is a friend of somebody I know from Drum Corps, who writes, how do you inspect roofs in the wintertime?
Yeah, you can't unless you can go back after it's cleared. So I typically ask at the time if there's snow on the roof. I'll ask when their contingency's up, and I'll try to schedule to get back once it's cleared, because here in Virginia, roofs don't stay covered that long unless we get snowmageddon, right?
Right. But they do in Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago, that's a different story.
Yeah.
You got to just kind of say, I looked underneath it and I looked at the attic and saw what that looked like. I went up and got on the eave and I kind of cleared off some of the snow from the shingles and got kind of a look at them. But it's even hard to tell shingles sometimes in a rainstorm.
Yeah.
What's going on with it? You don't get to see the staining. Now, if it has big moss globs on it, that's okay. That's a pretty telling tale. But
right.
So everything has its nuances, and the area particularly has its nuances in what you can and can't do during the winter versus the rest of the year.
Right. Well, that's a good point. I mean, so those are some things that could possibly be negatives, but now there's really positive reasons to buy as well too, and even with the inspections, there's a couple of reasons you mentioned, John. One of them being if you tend to get more rain, you can see what's going on a little bit easier. If you got pipes that are freezing and going to bust, you're going to know that a little bit easier, things like that. So those are also positive things. Alan, what would be a good reason why someone would buy in the winter or during the holidays? What's a good reason for it?
Probably the number one reason is there's less competition out there. There's a lot less people that are shopping. So you go supply and demand. So you don't have 50 other people to compete with. So there are less people, but there are good deals out there now this time of the year too, because there may be houses that have been sitting on the market for a length of time where now the sellers are going to soften up a little bit on their price. So with that being said, now is a good time to buy, or it's a good time to sell as well.
Right. So just to kind of share my thoughts on it, I think everything that all you guys said is right. First of all, I don't think there's a right or wrong time to buy a house or, frankly, to sell a house. You guys are all right into Alan's point, especially. There really is less competition out there. I mean, in the summertime, everybody's going out, and right now, interest rates are still at a really historic low point. The people that there's less competition out there, and sellers, I think Christina said this, are probably more apt to be willing to deal with people too. Now, people might say, "Oh, great, so it's a great time for buyers," but gosh, sellers really have it bad right now. Well, that's not true, really, because the buyers that are out there are serious buyers. They're not. I mean, if you're willing to go out in the cold or in this damp, nasty Virginia rain that we get, and you're willing to go around looking and you're pre-approved and you're all set to go, I mean, those kind of people are serious people about wanting to buy a house. They're not kicking tires. They're not looking for the perfect house, if you will. They want to buy a house. They want to buy it now, and they're set to go right now. So there's really no bad or good time, but this certainly is a good time for buyers, and frankly, it's not a bad time for sellers either. There's low inventory out there, and there's less houses to choose from because a lot of people historically don't want to list their house in the wintertime. So the other thing is that as a seller, there's less houses out there, which means, you know what, you got a better chance of having yours looked at by somebody that's really serious about buying it as well. So those are all positive reasons why you may want to consider, especially buying and then selling a home as well too. So thanks all you guys for your input. Now, I got a question from Mark from Portsmouth, Virginia. And Mark says, what's the current mortgage rate? It's kind of a loaded question, but I'll kind of throw that over to you, Christina, let you see what you can say about it.
So it's going to depend. Rates are trending right now in the high twos, but that's going to depend on your income, your credit, how much money you have to put towards the transaction. There are different factors that play into that. That's why we strongly encourage you to get pre-approved so that you know where you stand, where rates are. They're projected to stay relatively where they are for the foreseeable future. Of course, we never know with the roller coaster market, but it's something where you want to talk to a lender and then have a great realtor, any one of the people here, that can guide you throughout the process. So that's a loaded question, but they're in the high twos.
So let's talk about this a little bit, because I talked to someone yesterday, and they were telling me, they said, I don't get it. I make over $200,000 a year, and the best I can get was a 3.3% interest rate. There's more to it than just how much you make or what your credit score is, right?
Yep. Let's just say you make, $120,000 a year, but your credit score is like 660. Your rate's not necessarily going to be in the high twos because of your credit. And there could be other things on your credit. That's why we want to take a look at it and see what we can come up with prior to you going to look.
Right. And you can have a decent credit score, but you can have a debt to income ratio that's messed up too, right?
Right.
I mean, I know a lot of people that live in the area that listen, it's no secret where we live in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of money here, okay? Yeah. And people make a lot of money. But a lot of times when you make a lot of money, you spend a lot of money, and that affects your debt-to-income ratio. So, look, if you make $600,000 a year, but you're into your eyeballs in debt, it's going to hurt your ability to be able to get a house, or at least hurt your APR, right?
Yes, it would hurt your interest rate. Yeah, so we generally, and I know normally we have Scott on, he and I go back and forth on it, because as a financial advisor, you want to keep your debt to income about 10% lower than where we have it in the mortgage industry. So 45% is rule of thumb for the mortgage industry, and I believe Scott said 35%. But what that means is it's the ratio of your overall debt to the amount of monthly income that you bring in. So if you've got a lot of credit card debt, even if your income's really high, it's going to increase that debt to income ratio, which could either disqualify you from purchasing or increase your interest rate.
Right. Okay. So now I got another. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to all this since we're on the topic of credit and lending and all that? You know, it's interesting. My brother, David, is my brother's realtor. Actually, was telling me that it's kind of interesting. You always hear people talk about, they've got their mortgage all set to go. They called somebody up on this 1-800 number and they got pre-qualified for a loan and they're all set to go. And I was talking to my brother yesterday. He said, David recommended this lender to me. He said, do you know who they are? I said, I did. I know who they are. And he said, what do you think of them? And I told him, I said, look, I think it's always better. I mean, as the buyer, you can choose whoever you want to choose. But here's what I think that gets understated a lot when we talk about lenders is that there should probably be a good working relationship between the lender, the agent, the home inspector, the team, if you will, of people that are involved in this transaction. And the reason why I say that is that, and there's nothing wrong with some of these big companies. I mean, my wife worked for the biggest, financial gorilla there was for a long time. Okay, I'm not going to mention who they are, but and they lend out money all the time. But a lot of times as the agent, something will be going wrong, an appraisal will be going wrong, and I'm trying to reach somebody, and then as the agent, I'm trying to call somebody up, and I'm trying to call the loan officer, and I get passed after I dial through 1, 2, 3, and 4. I get passed off to a processor who doesn't happen to be in that day, so then they pass me off to whoever's sitting in for the processor, but they're at lunch, and it's just really difficult. If I have a problem, and look, in every transaction, there's different issues, but if I have a problem, I can call Christina up and I'll say, look, we got this going on. How do we work around this? Or heads up, this is the appraisal's coming in low, or whatever, or well, she would know better before I would, but I mean, whatever
I'd let
it
you
might
know.
be, yeah, whatever it might be. I mean, we work well together, or if I'm putting in a contract, then we put in a contract, and we're looking at a home inspection, and I might call John up and say, look, and we've done this before, in fact. My client needs to get this contract, but in order to get this contract, we need to waive the inspection. But we would like for you to do an inspection, when the house, after we close the house, so she knows what's wrong with it. And John has even offered up too before, hey, I'll take a quick walkthrough for you, just let you know if I see anything, So, I mean, when you're working with a local team, my point is, whether it be a lender, whether it be a title company, a lawyer, an inspector, that's always much better than trying to work with somebody over the phone who's third and fourth party. So, and not to say that they're not good, it's just that it's to your benefit to be working with a local team that understands the market, that works with each other, and they can overcome obstacles quickly. Does that make sense? All right, great.
Absolutely.
All right, so question I got. Oh, this is from Sterling Park. Joe, Joe, not Jose, he tells me. He says, from Sterling Park, it says, what is the difference between a sales price and an appraisal? So, any of you guys want
Hopefully
to
not much.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
A sales price is what the buyer's willing to pay.
Okay, that's the thing.
An appraisal is what the appraiser and the bank comes up with as to the value of the property.
Right. And the appraiser is hired by the bank or is sent out by the bank to protect their loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Right. So it's an interesting thing because I hear this all the time. Well, if you tell me what I need to sell my house for, what do I need an appraisal for? Well, you don't. The buyer of the house needs an appraisal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a difference. What Alan would do, if Alan's pricing a house, okay, there's 3 different approaches to, how you appraise a house. One is the sales approach, one is the cost approach, and one is the income approach. I'm not going to get into all those, but most often when you're buying a residential house, you're using the sales approach. And when Alan's going to sell a house, what do you do, Alan? You come up with a CMA. I mean, how do you generally do that? You come up with a CMA. What do you do?
Well, I basically look at this, first of all, look at the style of the house and look at the area it's in, and then run numbers of properties that are like that property in a certain area, because that is a key thing, is to make sure the property is in the same area, because houses vary from neighborhood to neighborhood. You could have one neighborhood with a house that are in the $1 million, and just a couple streets over, there could be a house that's $400 or $500. So you cannot take that and when you run comps, you have to do it in that neighborhood or in a like neighborhood. So you do that. You find out how many bedrooms it has, how many bathrooms it has, what the square footage of the house is, and then you run some numbers and you try to match it as closely as you possibly can. The acreage of the property, the condition of the property, the age of the property, all those factors come into play on what the house is worth. That's pretty
what the
much
house is worth, or what the house is worth, or what you're selling it for.
Well, we're going to put it on the market for.
Right there. And see, I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. What Alan and David and myself and all other agents do is we run a comparative market analysis to try to figure out what the value of the property is. But the sales price is, like what David mentioned, is what somebody's willing to pay for it. And there's different strategies that come into play. Sometimes you might be willing to list a property for less than what you think it's worth. The reason why agents do market analysis is to get an idea about what you're going to list it for, and get the value of the property, the dollar amount that the seller wants to get. That's what they call comparative market analysis. You do exactly what Alan was talking about, and you figure out what you're going to list it for so that you can get the most for it. An appraisal is something that the bank orders to protect their loan. They want to make sure that if someone is borrowing money, and Christina's a lender, she's representing a bank. She wants to make sure if she's lending out $500,000 that the house that she's buying or that she's lending money for is worth $500,000. And so an appraisal will come in, and they'll do similar to what Alan does, okay? But that's on behalf of the bank and on behalf of the buyer. So it's two separate things. The purposes are two different purposes, but they are similar. So I hope does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Can
Alan.
I interject here for 1 second?
Sure.
Just to give you guys an example out there that are listening to this. I had a property I had an appraisal done on a property prior to selling the property, because it was a unique property. It was close to water. Had a water view. So I wanted to make sure, because the agent prior to me listed the property at this crazy, ridiculous price, like 3 times of what it was worth. So I wanted to sell the property. So I wanted to prove to the seller that the property wasn't worth what he had it listed for, because he was very adamant. It was a 93-year-old man. He was very adamant on his price. And I wasn't going to try to sell the house for that price because it was ridiculous. So we did an appraisal. To make a long story short, the appraisal came in at like $230,000. Okay. And I couldn't sell it. I had it started at 230, dropped the price. I had it on the market for 6 months, dropped the price all the way down to 149, still couldn't sell it. Finally got an offer from a guy who came from California. It was up this steep hill. It was crazy. It was, you almost had to go vertical, like you were in San Francisco to check this house out. And it wouldn't sell. And I ended up pulling it off the market, and it never sold. It's still today, it hasn't sold. So the appraisal doesn't always match what the property will sell for. So keep that in mind as well. Sometimes it'll go the other way. Property will sell for more than what it appraises out.
Right. It's very subjective, and I guess a lot like home inspectors. I mean, one home inspector will look at something that might be. I mean, generally everything is the same, but I'm sure there's certain things that you put more emphasis on, John, than what other home inspectors do, right?
Absolutely, and I explain that to people when we do pre-listing inspections, that another home inspector might come in and his focus is right down this line. So we try to catch everything, and we try to list everything on the day we're there. But it's also the day we're there. We get a lot of calls that, I got one this week where the induction fan on the furnace doesn't work. He said it's real loud. It makes a lot of noise. Well, it didn't when I tested it in July. here we are in December, but they believe that everything is the same on the day you tested it. Nobody remembers that when you drive up to a Walmart, turn off your car, go inside and come out and turn it back on, the battery's dead. That stuff happens.
I had that happen with my
Yeah.
ice maker and my refrigerator. I left to go on an appointment, got a cold glass of water, came back right before dinner before we came up here, and the water maker and ice maker's not working.
Oh,
Yeah.
And my wife
It's
was
like-
like, "Oh, I guess we'll call Sears." I'm like, "Well, good luck with that."
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be different, and different inspectors look at things differently, right?
Right.
Some go more to the cosmetics, some stay strictly on the deficiencies. And so I do a lot of both, but I won't write up something cosmetic. I'll explain it,
Right.
show them a picture, talk about it, let them know it, but it's not going to be in the report because it's not a deficiency.
And frankly, I'm glad that you said that, because the way that Alan would do a comparative market analysis compared to how David would do it, compared to how I would do it, they're all going to be a little bit different because they're all subjective, okay?
Mhm.
They really are. And an appraiser is the same way. If you get two appraisers to come up with the exact same appraisal price, let me know. I'd like to hire both of them, because it is subjective, okay? So it's an interesting thing. I mean, everybody's going to be around the same ballpark if they're good at what they're doing, but everybody's going to do things a little bit differently. I got a question that came in from Desiree from Vienna. How soon before buying do I start the loan process? Christina. Now that's kind of a loaded question too, because it's not just the loan process, but go ahead and talk about that.
So, you want to start well in advance, honestly. You don't want to start, 30 days before is fine. I can accomplish that and I will help you do it. But it's better, if you're thinking of purchasing in the spring, let's get started now. Let's take a look at what your finances are. If, you have a concern about your credit or saving money, we can get a plan together, a year in advance, 6 months in advance. So it really depends on what your timeline is. If you're just curious about, what you could qualify for or what next steps you need to take to get there, that would be something we could discuss. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, but you definitely want to start, I would say, at least 60 days in advance, if not more.
Okay, so 60 days in advance. So that would kind of, I'm kind of thinking now for, I guess, Desiree. Now, how good are your pre-approvals typically good for? Because I hear a lot of people as an agent say, I don't want to start the process right now because they're going to pull my credit, and then it's going to only last a couple of months, and then they're going to pull my credit again, and and why don't you explain that for us?
So credit report is generally good for about 90 days. So you've got 3 whole months once we pull that credit report. Now, our pre-approval letters that I give out, I generally only have that letter itself good for 30 days because things can change. And they are subject to, full underwriting review pre-approval letters. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You're talking about pre-approval letters being typically good for 90 days, and then you only write them typically for about 30.
Yes. But what I would recommend is that, we take a look at everything first and we decide whether or not you let me know what your ballpark credit score is. Of course, I can't give you a full pre-approval letter at that time because I haven't pulled your credit and looked at all of that. But we can do an initial scenario without pulling your credit, just to kind of give you a good idea. But they're good for about 90 days.
Okay, good. So, and then if people go back at the end of the 90 days, if they haven't found anything, and by the way, in this market, if you haven't found anything in 90 days, you're doing something wrong, because you got to be finding stuff right away because houses are going that fast. Yep. So if you're waiting 90 days or you're waiting for the perfect house, you probably shouldn't be looking. You ought to be looking later on anyhow. But so at the end, let's just say, though, for the sake of argument, 90 days goes around and you still haven't found a house yet. Are you going to pull their credit again and reissue a new pre-approval letter, or how does that work?
So, of course, I'm not going to pull it again without your permission. So if at the end of 90 days, you haven't found something, you're not necessarily ready yet, we'll wait to pull it again. But we would eventually, once you got under contract, we would need to pull it again. and
sure.
that would determine where we go.
So, and that's what I try to tell clients, and I think it's important they know that, look, that pre-approval letter is basically to give you an idea that they're credit worthy, to be able to issue something so they can go look at a house. Unless you do something frankly stupid, like go out and buy a car in the middle of all that. And,
Don't do that.
like, yeah, I mean, I've seen some crazy things. I don't know about you, but I've seen people go out and buy furniture for their brand new house when it's, and then all of a sudden their credit gets messed up. I'm like, don't do that. And no matter how often you tell people not to do it, they do it anyhow.
Still do it. Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, your job is not to try to make it difficult for them. It's to try to work with them. And look, okay, so if you go beyond 90 days and we haven't pulled your credit yet, it's not a big deal. But when it comes time, if you want to put a contract in a house, we need to pull it then to make sure, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, and you would have to do that anyhow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's only good for a 90-day period, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So let me ask this question of the agents, and then I'm going to go back to John a little bit about back to sellers. So for the agents, let's say that someone is interested in buying a house. Okay. Let's say right after the holidays, or let's just say the 1st of March. Okay. When should they be looking for a house? David, let's start with you.
I'd start them looking right now, at least setting them up with an auto search so they can get a feel for what's out there and what's available.
Explain what an auto search is for those that might not know.
Well, that's what we do as agents is we set up our clients to receive automatic emails with properties fitting their criteria on a regular basis. It could be daily, weekly, monthly. It's up to the client to decide how often they want to see properties coming into their email. So they'll be able to get these as they can get them daily and see properties when they come up real time. And if it's something they like, they can get on the phone, they can call the agent, and they can ask to see the house. But one thing to remember, every time you pick up the phone, if you want to see a house, expect the agent to ask you about a pre-approval. And if you're not ready with a pre-approval, he can set you in the right direction to get that done for you.
Okay. So you would start setting people up right now. People want to buy a house around the 1st of March. Your advice is let's start getting you familiar with the market, looking at the market, right?
Correct. There's also some education that needs to be done with a lot of buyers. Since especially first-time buyers, they don't know a lot about how the process works. So it's good to get them in early so we can get all the questions out of the way. I can send them emails on the side with some educational pieces on how the process works. And by the time they find a house or choose a house or decide they're ready to go, they're already pre-qualified and they have a general idea of how everything works.
Okay, great. Alan, what about you? Somebody wants to buy a house the 1st of March. When should they start looking? What should they be doing?
I think I look at things a little differently, especially with the way the market is right now with such low inventory. I wouldn't really start. I mean, I would send them houses, but until they're really serious and they're pre-approved and really serious buying, I wouldn't entertain the thought of bringing them out if they're not ready to buy yet. If they haven't, I mean, I may take them out to show them 1 or 2 houses, but you want to make sure that if you're going to buy a house, you want to make sure you've done all your homework. You've gotten your loan officer to approve you to get everything going, because things are selling so quickly. If you get your heart set on a house and you're not ready to go, then it's a big mistake on your part. So I think I would wait just a little bit to take you out until you're closer to being ready, for the simple reason basically is so you don't look at something and want it and you're not ready for it. That's what
I think you and David are saying the same thing, though. David was talking about, showing people houses by the MLS and the search and educating people, and it sounds like you're saying the same thing. Go ahead, David. I can see you.
A lot of times there are people who say, I don't want to buy I'll buy in the next 3 to 6 months. And that's because they don't know how quickly they can get a house.
Right.
Okay, once you start educating them and letting them know how the process works and how simple it is and what the steps are needed to take, then say, oh, maybe we can do it, in a month or two. And that's reality. That does happen. So I don't push anybody away that's 6 months out to a year. I say, okay, I start talking to them right away.
Sure. So it sounds like you guys are basically saying the same thing. It might be a different thought, and it might have to do with different areas, frankly. But I do know this. First of all, the one thing I hear that's consistent with both of you guys, and I agree with that, is that you need to get front loaded. You need to get pre-approved with your lender. Maybe you don't need to get pre-approved until you really start getting serious, and that's okay. But there's nothing to stop people from starting to look at houses, seeing what the market is like. I can't tell you the number of people I get who will say, well, I make $50,000 a year and I'm looking for a $500,000 house. Well, that's great, but you know what? You're just not going to find, first of all, with $50,000, you're not going to be able to buy a $500,000 house, but I wouldn't know that because I haven't sent them to Christina or any lender yet, okay? So this comes into the education point, David, that you're talking about, educating people about the market. And one of the ways that we can educate people about the market is to let them start seeing houses, okay? Let them see what's out there. I also get people that say, well, I've only got, I make $50,000 a year and I'm looking for $150,000 single family home. Well, good luck finding that in Northern Virginia. It's just not out there. And sometimes, what I find is that people are smart, they really are. And they can figure out that, there aren't any $250,000 single family homes in Northern Virginia. And by the same token, if you're only making $50,000 a year, you're probably not going to be able to afford a $500,000 house. But part of that education process, by letting people see what's going on in the market, see what's selling, see how long it's going. A lot of times I'll get buyers out there that, that are ready to go right now. They want to buy a property right now, and they saw it on Zillow, and they only find out, it was sold 2 weeks ago. Well, that's because you're looking on Zillow and you're not taking the MLS information we're sending you. So all that is the education that goes into that. Now, that all deals with buyers. I want to talk a little bit about sellers with John, because John does something that there's two things that I recommend, if you can afford it, that you should do when you're selling a property. Now, I get a lot of pushback from a lot of agents on this. I personally tell people, I think it's a good idea, if you can afford it, to get an appraisal on your house before you sell it. And the reason for that is appraisals are typically good for up to 6 months. And if there's an appraisal that's way off when it comes time for the sale of the house, you've got something else that's already there. Plus, you know a little bit about what an appraiser is going to appraise the house at, and that's a good thing. The other thing I almost always, if they can afford to do it, is recommend is a home inspection. John, why don't you talk about why it's so important for sellers to have a pre-sale home inspection?
For sellers and for people who've lived in their house for 10, 15 years. It just gives you a new baseline. It tells you what's going on in the house. It'll give you an idea of what you need to look at, repair, then you can talk with your agent about which of these repairs is going to return the money, right? Rather than going in and I'm going to remodel the whole kitchen. I'm going to remodel all the bathrooms. I'm going to dump 40 grand into my house. Well, you just increased your value by 24. So you just lost $16,000 in equity.
Right.
So, but to have a home inspection, it tells them all the deficiencies in the house. There are things that will most likely be picked up. And they can then sit down with their agent and have a conversation about which ones are better to do to increase the value of my house or the saleability. I go in and say, your HVAC is 19 years old. Your water heater is 17 years old. Maybe that's where you put some money, because people then, when they see the high dollar items that have been replaced in a house, they have more confidence in spending the money on the house.
It's great
You know, a lot of
marketing to the agents too, by the way.
Right, right. And a lot of people put the money in and say, well, I'll pay for a home warranty. Well, how about you upgrade the systems and you know, you'll sell the house for more money. I did one today that has all new appliances in the kitchen, has a 2-year-old HVAC and a 1-year-old water heater. So all the rest of the things I did in that home inspection are pale in comparison to the amount of money that they're getting in that house already.
Right.
Because they don't have to concern themselves about those things. So some little bit of trim that needs to be replaced, you know, a window that doesn't work quite right, those become almost nothing since they've already got a new HVAC, they've already got a new water heater, and they've already got new appliances.
And it seems like it's kind of hard for a buyer when they come in and they start nitpicking and saying, well, this trim needs to get fixed. And I'm a home buyer looking at it and saying, really? You're getting a $15,000 house. You got a new roof, new HVAC system, new hot water system, and you're talking to me about trim on the roof?
Right. And you're talking to me about some caulk on a bathtub?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I always, when I'm talking with clients and they ask, you know, top 5 things or something like that, I say, well, take the things that you can do, the caulk, that kind of stuff, push that to the side. Okay, it's stuff that needs to be done to maintain the house, but it's not something that is critical to this deal. Pick the things that you can't do, the things that you want to have done, and concentrate on those. You know, and also understand what of my list are walkaway items and what are I'm going to ask for it, but I'm also willing to accept it if the seller tells me no.
Right.
Because that happens too. You got to know what is a walkaway item. What are you willing to throw this deal away on? You know, it's important to have that understanding.
Advice. Yeah, great advice. All right, so we are coming up to the end of our session here soon, and bear with me for a second. And so what I would like to do is, we talked about this before. You know, Christmas is the season of giving and everything else. And so what I'd like to do is kind of go around the horn and either let's give the audience some special or some giveaway that you might have, or give them some sort of a nugget that they can use, you know, when they're either buying or selling their house. And, you know, just something that you think is a really good piece of information, a really good deal, whatever it might be, where, you know, to our audience. And let's just go ahead and start. Let me start with Christina. I gotta tell you too, last year Christina and I did a video with these hats, and it was so blazing hot, man. You remember how hot it was that day? I mean, we were cooking in that room. And I'm up in my office now, and I think I need to have John come by and check out the windows because I'm nice and cool now. So.
Right, I'm pretty good now. I've got the fan going. I'm pretty good, but it was blazing last year.
It must be the antlers beating your head down.
It must be. They have little jingle bells on them too.
What's your giveaway?
So just kind of going back to benefits of buying during the holidays, you know, you've got a lot of motivated agents right now that are looking to close out the year strong, because year end is right around the corner. We can finally say hindsight's 2020. And then also, you know, if you don't have a whole lot of money to put into the transaction, the holidays are also a great time to do it because sellers are more willing to accept, you know, lower earnest money deposits. Or, you know, maybe not necessarily in this market, but, you know, you could potentially get a seller credit, which is something that's a little bit foreign to us in this time. But yeah, it's just a few other little nuggets about buying during the holidays.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. Alan, what's your giveaway for the holiday season?
My giveaway is to anybody who buys a house through me and I close on it, I will give them $1,000 to spend any way that they would like.
Wow. Well, you just beat me to death because. All right, good. Now listen, that's a big deal. $1,000. So if they close between now and the end of the year, is that what you're saying?
No, right now it's pretty much impossible to close by the end of the year unless you're paying cash.
Right, right.
So, I mean, it's usually 45 days you can close. So we're beyond that 45 days right now. So I'll let it run in January, even into February. If I close a deal from you and you choose me as your client, then I will donate $1,000 to whatever you want to do with it.
Wow, that's awesome. That is
Mhm.
really awesome. All right, David.
I'm in the Chicago area, by the way, in the suburbs. If you reach out to me and either buy or sell a house, I'd be more than happy to probably do what Jim is getting ready to do, which is offer the $500 if we close. And again, we're going into the winter months. If you reach out to me and tell me that you saw me on this, what are we calling this? A webinar, Zoom?
Yeah, it's just it's one-stop shop edition. You know,
If
it's
you
one-stop shop
yeah,
real
if you
estate.
remind me that you saw me on the one-stop shop, I'm there for you, and you will definitely get a lot more value from my service.
Wow, that's really good. So, by the way, this is all on tape, so we can't weasel out of this stuff. Okay, we're here. So David's going to give up anybody that signs with him between now and the end of the year. At closing, you'll give him $500, right?
Correct.
Wow, what a great gift! So we got $1,000, got $500, got a nugget of intel and information from Christina. John, do you have any kind of a giveaway in terms of info or any kind of specials going on?
Well, January is radon month, right? So in January, we do $99 radon tests with every inspection. So we give those away. And I'll tell you what, if somebody calls me and wants to, and through this meeting and they understand the sauce and do that, I'll throw their radon in between now and the end of the year for free.
Wow, what a great thing.
That's pretty nice.
That is nice.
I'll do the radon test for free.
So I've got a couple of things that I already do, and let me just kind of revamp through that. For our veterans, veterans that are selling houses, I give a 1% discount right off the top before we even start talking on commission because they're veterans, because I believe that strongly. Most people here either are veterans or have been associated with veterans, and Christina and I work with veterans closely all the time. I believe strongly in that. So an ongoing program is if you're a veteran and you list a house with me right off the top, I'm going to give you, 1% off of your listing. I also have a program called Friends and Family. And what that basically is if you're a friend of mine or you refer somebody that's coming to me and let them know that you referred them, I'm going to give you money out of my pocket, and it's scaling. For example, one of my clients last October got $4,500 back from me from my Friends and Family program because he bought a really nice size house, and I gave him back that money. So the Friends and Family programs, if you know me or if you're a friend of mine and you refer somebody, make sure you tell them, hey, tell Jim about the Friends and Family program because he'll be giving you back, it could be up to thousands of dollars in your own pocket. Mm-hmm. But wait, there's more. Above all that, in addition to that, if by the end of the year you decide you want to buy or sell from me, I'm going to give you $500, and that's going to be on top of any other program that you might qualify for. So now I'll give that to you at the closing table. It doesn't come out of your pocket at all. It comes out of my pocket. That's my gift. So we're all giving you something here. We can't weasel out of it. This is on tape. And listen, tell your friends about these different things that we're offering. John, with the free radon, and David with the $500, and Christina's got great information, and Alan's giving up $1,000, and we got programs from Jim. Tell your friends and family about this because it's the season to give. And by the way, you're going to look really good to those folks when you do all that, So make sure you do that, okay? Anyhow, that's all I've got. Everybody's on the record for what they're going to do. If you are watching this, please make sure that you pass it on to anybody you know that may be considering buying or selling a house. It's really good information. In the meantime, does anybody have any last plugs they want to put in?
I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. We wanted to do one last one-stop shop before we close out 2020, and we look forward to seeing you all in 2021.
Absolutely. Says the lady with the reindeer antlers.
There you go.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, listen, let's close out. And again, remind everybody who we are. John, why don't you go ahead and start?
I'm John Murray, owner of Housemaster Home Inspections in Bristow, outside of Manassas, Virginia, here in Northern Virginia. You can find us on either housemaster.com or john.murray@housemaster.com.
Did you forget it? It must be Sonality coming in, right?
Yeah, must be.
Alan, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Alan Hill with eXp Realty. I work the Connecticut market. I can pretty much cover all of Connecticut. My phone number is 860-712-7555, or you can email me at alan.hill@exprealty.com. Look forward to giving you that $1,000 if you want to take it and run with it. You got it. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Alan. David?
Yes, hi. My name's Dave Perez. I'm with eXp Realty. My number is 708-408-9006. You can email me at david.perez, Perez, @exprealty.com. I wish you all a very happy and Merry Christmas and a great New Year.
Absolutely.
Good riddance
Thank
for
you.
2020.
Yeah.
COVID, right?
And Christina, you ready?
I'm ready. Christina Smith here of Caliber Home Loans. I'm a loan consultant that is happy to help you throughout the end of 2020 and into 2021 with any of your refinance or purchase needs. You can call me at 703-967-0459, or you can email me at christina.smith@caliberhomeloans.com. Feel free to call me or text me. We'll set something up and I'll help you out. Happy New Year to everyone and a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Christina. And I am Jim Trautz. I live in the thriving metropolis of Sterling, Virginia. Okay, it's about 10 miles north of Dulles Airport. But look, I've got colleagues that I work with all over the country. Alan's one of those colleagues. David's one of those colleagues. I have colleagues in California. I've got a team of realtors that's growing. In fact, David's part of my team. I'm bringing on another person down in Southern Virginia. We're nationwide. We can do whatever you want to do, wherever you might be, and we'd be glad to help you out. So feel free to give me a call. My phone number is 571-242-3668, or formally, I can be emailed at james.trautz@exprealty.com. Hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and thank you everybody for showing up. Thanks to our panel for all the great stuff that you guys do. Look at David.
There we go.
All right, everybody. Good
Can
night.
I chime
Take
in with
care.
one
Good
thing?
night. Thank
Merry
you, Jim.
Christmas.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy New
Bye-bye.
Year.
Can I
Bye.
chime in one thing before we close?
Sure.
We are in 9 to 11 more countries now this year. Believe it or not, we're in
Yep.
Australia.
Wow.
So eXp is really growing. We're one of the fastest growing real estate agencies in the world, not in the country, the world.
Yep.
So,
That's amazing.
so you know, we can help you wherever you are.
All right. Thank you, David. Or thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Hi,
That's my
everyone.
ending.
Bye.
Bye.